Welcome into the show, everyone. Christian Jackson here with special guest Chris Harry, senior writer for FloridaGators.com. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So before getting into this year's roster, year 3 of the Tide Golden Era ends with cutting down the Nets, national champions. I want to ask what it was like to be around the program last year, just following the team and being a part of a special season.
Well, it's a little different for me, Christian, just because when you're the senior writer covering the basketball for FloridaGators.com, you have all access and, travel with the team in team meetings, team meals, that kind of thing. So you get to know these coaches and these players and their families very, very well. And it's one thing. Yeah, I covered Super Bowl champion. I covered the Florida Gators with Steve Spurrier in 1996 as a beat reporter when they won the national championship. I covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they won a Super Bowl in 2002. And that's a very exhilarating thing. It's a very thing you get going as a reporter, and you got to be on your game and all that stuff. But it's a lot different when you're personally invested in some of these people, and you get to see something like that live and in person and up close, and really one of the special experiences that I got to deal with, because I think probably if you go back to the conversation you and I had about a year ago, I thought this team was going to be really, really good. And question for a few minutes from now, they're probably going to be really, really good again. But I don't know if they're going to be Walter Clayton, Will Richard, and Elijah Martin good. That's a different conversation. But it was something to behold, and it was one of the great championship runs, not just in Florida Gators history, but in the NCAA tournament history.
Yeah, I mean, just such high-level basketball. Clayton, just one of the most special guard performances I've ever seen in the tournament, and just the comebacks, like just backs against the wall.
That's right.
In 4 of those games, was just incredible.
That's right. I looked it up. They were 6-1 against teams that were seeded number 1 or 2 in the NCAA tournament over the course of the season last year. The one loss being to Tennessee on the road, but they also beat Tennessee twice. Beat Houston, number 1 seed. Beat Auburn, a number 1 seed. Beat Alabama twice, number 2 seed. So, an elite basketball team. And like you said, you mentioned his comebacks, double-digit comebacks. In 3 NCAA tournament games, or excuse me, 2, and then the 9-point deficit in the second half against Auburn. So remarkable resilience and just clutch shot making, especially by the guy who wore number 1.
And of course, dethroning the 2-time national champion UConn Huskies on the way there.
That's right. That's right. And Walter Clayton was important in that game too.
Sure was.
Yeah.
So you bring back this entire front court, which is really enticing. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but I do want to start with this transfer backcourt of Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee. So Boogie Fland comes into Arkansas as a potential one-and-done talent, kind of has the keys to the offense, gets hurt, and then Arkansas kind of got better with him. He comes back late and, has a good attitude and pitches in a little bit, but, a guy who tested the waters and decided to come back. And then Xavier Lee on that 15-seed Princeton team who made the Sweet 16 didn't really play, but, was a key piece off the bench that season. And then the last 2 years has just been absolutely fantastic. 17.6 rebounds, 6 assists last year. You bring in these 2 guys, both are high-quality playmakers and shooters. How do they fit together, and what are your expectations for this backcourt of Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland?
Yeah, you look at Boogie's stats at Arkansas last year, and you made the point that the Arkansas seemed to play better after he got hurt. He arrived there hurt. He had a sore hernia that eventually he got it operated on this year. So he got surgery on it after he got here at Florida, and so he was out for a couple months. But goodness gracious, once he was clear for contact, and now that he's been able to start playing, I saw him in the close scrimmage last weekend against FIU. He was terrific, Christian. I mean, he scored, he distributed, and what he really, really does is defend on the perimeter. He's long, he's very quick. I think if you ask John Calipari, the fastest player he's ever seen from one end to the other would be John Wall, and I think maybe people in the NBA would probably say that after watching John Wall over his career. Boogie Fland is probably a class right behind him. Just elite speed, and that will play in perfect to the tempo that Todd Golden wants to play, obviously. Xavier Lee, Princeton. No, yeah, he didn't play much on that team that went to the Sweet 16, but he was the best player on Princeton the last 2 years. Averaged around, I think, 17 over the 2 years. Led the team in assists. I think he was over 6 rebounds a game last year. Um, Really, really good handles, can create space, can get a shot off just about any time he wants to. He struggled a little bit in the scrimmage. This isn't going to be the Ivy League now, so he knows that. Florida plays Illinois in a close scrimmage this coming weekend in Orlando, and that'll be a test. That'll be a really good test going into just a brutal, pre-conference schedule. But you have two elite ball handlers, two elite guys that can make shots, unselfish players. It's funny, Florida has not had a player average 5 assists a game since Andrew Nemhard in 2020. Enter these two guys who both averaged more than 5 assists at their previous stops. So that speaks to their unselfishness and the impact they'll probably have in moving the ball around here.
Sometimes when you're trying to project transfers and grab their stats from the previous stop, people will see something like 2 point guards as a negative of like, oh, is there like could there be a little bit of dissonance between those two guys of role allocation stuff? But I kind of see it with the speed Florida plays with. It's great to have 2 point guards. Like maybe Boogie is the guy who has it more, but I think having Xavier's life is just going to be so much easier than it was when all eyes were on him constantly. He was the engine behind that Princeton offense. Can you speak to just that, how they can kind of play off each other, and if you expect one guy to be the true point guard for most of the time?
Yeah, it's funny. Like a year ago this time, they're saying the Gators didn't have a point guard. Walter Clayton, he's not a point guard. He looked like a pretty good point guard. He was just a great basketball player. And now they're saying, oh, we got too many point guards in the Gator backfield or backcourt all of a sudden. So, it's enabled Todd Golden, who lost his offensive coordinator, Kevin Hovde, who's terrific. He's now the head coach at Columbia. Todd has taken over the offense, and it's allowed him to be a little bit of a mad scientist. They can start their offense with either player bringing the ball up. But you're right, Boogie will get the first nod, and by definition, right now Xavier would be a 2 guard. But if the shot clock's winding down, say it's 6 seconds, 5 seconds, and they need to get a shot off, he's going to be the guy most likely who can go get his own at that time. That's not to say Boogie can't. But Xavier Lee is a guy who can really, with his handles and his ability to change pace and create space between defenders, can get a shot off when he wants to. It's interesting. He told me when we were talking, he averaged less than one catch and shoot 3-pointer the last 2 years at Princeton. That's because he was the focal point of everything they did. So no one was going to let him run around. So he had to be more of a distributor. But in this offense, when you got the shooters that Florida will have, we haven't talked about Thomas Houck's improved shooting. We haven't talked about Urban Klavsdar. Xavier Lee is going to get a lot more opportunities for catch and shoot threes. And, I think he's a 38% career 3-point shooter. So there's a little bit of an unknown with that element of the team. But that's Todd Golden's not particularly worried about it. And these guys, the back of their basketball cards look pretty good. And we'll just see as this develops, but they'll be really, really tested in this in the unbelievably difficult preseason schedule.
Into this returning front court, the key thing I want to start with is Tommy Howe moving from that 4 to the 3. I know you can still use him at the 4. I saw you wrote about this. Todd had a quote on it, but would you mind just explaining that kind of transition for him? Obviously, shooting is what comes to mind as the biggest, as a 6'9" guy playing, the 3, that's where he really can open up the offense. But then also defensively, are there any concerns of him? He moves really well, but is there any concerns of him on some of these teams? I see that play a bunch of guards on the perimeter.
No, he's a crazy athlete. He's as best conditioned as anybody on the team. He's long, he's bouncy. If he gets beat off the dribble, his length and what he's able to do, and his real high IQ defender enables him to recover. I'm really not worried about him. There's nobody in the building that's worried about him playing the 3. I mean, if you remember the Texas Tech game, hit those 4 3-pointers. Look at Thomas Houck's trajectory. He started as a freshman, not starting in the lineup, but his freshman season, as a say 17, 18-minute guy. He shot 25%, I believe, from the 3-point line and 47% from the free throw line. As a sophomore, he shot 35% from the 3-point line and 75% from the free throw line. So he works on his craft, and he's certainly doing everything being asked of him relative to making the switch from the 4 to the 3. And I don't think it's, I mean, he looks like the same player out there. He's just playing outside more, and it's going to make Florida all the more dangerous. Think about this: the last 2 years, or it's just like, let's say last year, or you can go back to 2 years ago when they had Tyrese Samuel and Condon on the floor, or Micah Hanlockton and Tyrese Samuel mostly were those two guys. Todd Golden is married to playing two bigs at all times. Okay, that's just what he wants to do, and you play through those guys with the offense that he runs. Last year, Florida, I think, was the number 5 offensive rebounding team in the country, playing two bigs all time, either Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelo, Alex Condon, and Thomas Houck. Later in the season, it was Micah Hanlockton obviously came in. Now there's going to be 3 on the court almost exclusively. If you got Ruben and you got Condon and Tommy on the wing, and Tommy's going to play 34 minutes a game. If you take one of those other bigs out, you got Micah in there. Sometimes Tommy will slide over to the 4 position to give one of those other guys a break. Fine. They have answers for that at the backup 3 position also, but Thomas Houck's going to probably lead the team in minutes this year, and he probably should because he's well conditioned, and I think he's the best player in the team. And Alex Condon was first team All American, preseason All American, and he may not even be the best player on the team. I think Thomas Houck is the best player on this team, and I think it'll bear out this year.
I love the high praise. I remember tweeting out last year during the tournament. I'm like, I think he might have the highest NBA upside of anyone on the team last year, with 3 guys who just got drafted out of that backcourt. So I'm really high on him, and I think people are kind of overthinking the sliding him to the 3 thing, especially when you talk about the progression of the 3-point shot. But I want to talk about Alex Condon now, another guy who could have went to the NBA draft, comes back. I circled him definitely as a breakout candidate. You spoke really highly of him last preseason. Is there another step for him to unlock of that? He was a little up and down the tournament, had some really great games. But what is that kind of next step for him to unlock this year?
Just to be better at everything. I asked the coaches the exact same question you asked them. Where does he go from here? Because it seemed like there were games last year when against the most physical teams and the most physical front court players that Alex didn't have his best games. The Tennessee comes to mind, Maryland game even. He did get hurt in that game. He wasn't, but I tell you what, have a conversation with Janai Broom, who certainly has great first halves against Florida and bad second halves. And that's a product of how hard Alex Condon and Ruben Chinyelu and Thomas Houck played in that front court. And, Alex's game has expanded. He is a pretty damn good 3-point shooter now. He showed a little sign of, I think he was around 28, 29% last year. He's going to be allowed to shoot that. And I think he made 2 in the scrimmage the other day against FIU. But he makes them all the time in practice, and they practice it all the time with him. And it's a part of his game. But again, what was he, 10.6 points, I think 7.5 rebounds a game last year. Those are decent numbers. He's going to be an NBA. He's got to probably be more physical. He's only 230 pounds. I would have liked to see him gain more weight, but he's just not a guy who gains a lot of weight. Ruben Chinedo is up to 270 now. But with less than 10% body fat. Micah Hanlockton is up to 265 now with less than 10% body fat. They put weight on these guys. Maybe Alex didn't need to because he's so great at running the floor. He makes really good decisions with the basketball. Is he prone to turnovers? Yeah, sometimes. But he had 6 assists in the scrimmage the other day. And I think in a couple games last year, he had 4 and 5 assists. So once he gets in the post, he knows how to find guys also on the perimeter.
He's awesome. Just love how he competes on the glass, how versatile, just the way he moves offensively and his vision. And, maybe that ball handling is another thing we could see from him, but just such a special.
Think about this also. Those 2, he and Thomas came in together as freshmen, and Florida had the last ranked recruiting class in the SEC that year. And so those guys weren't even on anyone's radar. Hanlon obviously coming from Australia, and Thomas coming from a prep school in Pennsylvania, where he played with Xavier and Lee, as it turned out. But it also shows not only are those recruiting rankings not an inexact science, which we know already, but it speaks to their development as players in the gym here and what the Florida staff has done specifically. I give credit to Torian Green, who's the director of player development and really knows what he's doing with those guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, truly, truly incredible player development, but also makes me definitely think about how those guys could have been, ranked that low. But continuing with this front court, I saw you write that Micah Hanlockton's in, the best shape of his life. I think people are kind of sleeping on his impact. He was a guy who was really sought after in the portal. Before he came to Florida, was fantastic that season before he had that awful injury, and then surprises people by coming back and being a nice piece off the bench on this championship run. Is he back to that form or even better right now?
No, I mean, he looks like the best player he's ever been in his career, and he's not even going to start on this team. So in the scrimmage the other day, he had 8 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and no turnovers in backup duty. Like I said, less than 10% body weight. And when he was here his first year after coming here from Marshall, he was probably playing at 225, 230. He got shoved around a lot. People think he's 7'1", he's this great shot blocker. He's not really that. But I tell you what, he's an elite offensive rebounder. And even when he made the unselfish decision to come back and play in that stretch run last year when those guys were hurt, I would say he wasn't anywhere close to being 100%, but they didn't need him to be because they were so good up there. They just needed the minutes that he gave him. And you saw like what he does when he grabs an offensive rebound. First he does is look on the perimeter for a guy for an open 3-point shot. And that doesn't show up in the box score. It shows up as an assist, but the floor spread out, and it's bone crunching to a defense to play well, not get the rebound, and all of a sudden sacrifice a 3-pointer. No matter, will Florida have the guys? They don't have Will Richard, they don't have Will Clayton, they don't have Denzel Aberdeen. We haven't talked about the loss of him, but they're gonna need guys who catch those offensive rebounds and hit 3-pointers to really make teams pay. And Micah Hanlockton is going to be a guy who's going to get an awful lot of offensive rebounds. He's going to play a lot of minutes this year. He's probably not more than a 22, 23-minute guy on this team. But he may be, because things happen over the course of the season. But he looks fantastic, and that's a credit to him for what he's been able to do to get him back to where he was. Because this time last year, he's only 6 months removed from that horrific injury in the SEC tournament.
Chinyelu, you said that he got up to 270, already a monster. Is there another? I thought he was great in his role last year, and he kind of needs to do the exact same thing this year. But is there any growth for him, or what?
Well, you want to keep these guys happy, so all of them have ambitions of playing the NBA. Frankly, I think all 4 of these bigs have a chance to be in the NBA, and the next step for Ruben would be to hone his game around the basket. He's worked on his baby hook really nicely. He's learned to use the glass better. We'll see how it manifests itself. He's taken some 3-point shots in practice too, and as hard as he plays and as great as he is when it comes to those duck-ins and those screens when guards are driving, that's stuff that doesn't show up in the box score. How he basically clears out a lane for a guy to come in and just one of those guards to make an easy layup. When he's doing everything he's supposed to have, you got to let him do some things that maybe he wants to do, whether that's taking a 3 or getting the ball in the basket. But I tell you what Todd Golden's offense is rooted in, and they're on the run. Those bigs run right to the base, and whatever big gets there first, he's supposed to get the ball right away. If he doesn't get the ball right away, if he throws it in, if it's nothing there, if he kicks it back out and they start running. But Ruben needs to be rewarded for how hard he plays, and he's really good defender, really physical guy, and I would hate to be bang on him. And we mentioned Janai Broom earlier. Janai Broom didn't like playing against Ruben Chinyelu, especially in the last 10 minutes of games.
So that's your top 6 guys. You've got a crop of 4 backcourt guys that I expect to all factor in, but I kind of want you to walk me through the pecking order here. So you got Klavzar back, didn't really play on the tournament run, but was a key piece in SEC play. Obviously a really great shooter. AJ Brown from Ohio, who struggled a bit with injuries, but was really good last year, super strong at 6'4", really built, kind of reminds me of Elijah Martin in that way. And his younger brother, Isaiah, who developed last year on the bench as a freshman. and then CJ Ingram, the freshman. So of those 4 guys, what's kind of the pecking order, and what have you been hearing for them?
Well, I would say we'll divide them in 2 spaces. I would put CJ as the first behind Thomas
Sure.
at that 3 position. Can he play the 2? Sure, but he's not a shooter. Right now, he's a defensive, player, a rebounder, a guy who can, kinda he needs to just make the right decision, make the right play. They're not going to ask a whole lot of CJ Ingram this year, except to guard, pass the ball, and some the coaches even said like sometimes just get the hell out of the way. But he's an elite enough athlete where things can fall to him, whether that's not a stick back or a transition dunk or something like that. He's certainly capable of doing that. Remember, this guy just started playing basketball full time a couple years ago. He was a great quarterback at Hawthorne
Mhm.
High, about 15 miles out of town here. Urban Clavzar is the best shooter on the team. Going to play a lot of minutes. He'll be the first guard off the bench. He was 6 of 7 from 3 in the scrimmage the other day. Had 18 points in that game. Didn't shoot anything inside the 3-point line. Guys know he knows what to do. He's on a transition. He's running to an open space. If he's open, he's supposed to shoot the ball. He's not a great ball handler. When you can kind of harass him a little bit. I wouldn't say he's a combo guard. I'd say he's got a definitive skill set, and then he needs to play to that, and he certainly has a role on this team. The Brown brothers remains to be seen. AJ could possibly medical redshirt because he had shoulder surgery from when he got here. They may not need him. I mean, I don't know what his role is going to be. Same with Isaiah. At the same time, I mean, it was Isaiah's job to lose on the wing, that backup wing spot coming in, and CJ's kind of beating him out on that for now, subject to change. Um, but Todd Golden doesn't like to play a lot of guys. You mentioned yourself. We went over the first 6. Um, he likes to play about 8, maybe 8.5. Someone I haven't mentioned yet, you haven't mentioned, is Alex Lloyd. He's a freshman from Miami Westminster. He shows up at practice. He can really shoot the ball. He averaged 27.5 a game, had 3 games in high school over 40 points. Um, just needs to be a little more physical, need a little more fight to him. That's okay. I mean, the guy's never played a college game before. But those are basically your guys, and how that all hashes out. By the time we get into February, Todd Golden will have a solid rotation of who his guys are, and it'll probably be around 8 players, and probably not much more beyond that.
One thing I want to ask about is you spoke highly of what Boogie Flan can do defensively. It's kind of like a point of attack defender. I just keep thinking about how good Elijah Martin was defensively in Xavier Lee making the jump from the Ivy League. Clavzar obviously shooting is his best attribute, not defense. Is there any concern about the backcourt's ability to defend this year, or is instead of Florida being the 6th best defense like they were, last year, it could be obviously not going to be 94th like the year before? Is it somewhere in that kind of 20-30 range because of not having a guy like Elijah Martin there?
I would say so. Dave Klatsky, the new assistant coach, has now taken over the defense,
Is he
and
the NYU guy?
correct. And he's Kevin Hovday's brother-in-law, in fact. Um, I mean, everything decision that's made in the building is based on numbers, and there are no champions that haven't finished in the top 20. In I think maybe there's one in the last 19 years that
Mhm.
hasn't finished in the top 20 in offense and defense efficiency. So the goal obviously is to be in the top 20 in defensive in defense on that side of the ball. So no, there's no Elijah Martin. Boogie Flan would be the designated guy on the perimeter, but Elijah Martin is a different defender than Boogie Flan. Even he was more of a physical guy who didn't mind bodying up and things of that nature. But we'll see. We'll obviously have to see how that plays out. But what Elijah did last year was kind of change the culture in the gym during practice with how to defend. And that I believe has been carried over by a lot of the guys here. He deserves a lot of credit for that. He had the know-how. He'd been to the Final Four, and from the time he set foot here, he had no problem speaking up and talking about what the bar needed to be on that side of the court. Now they just got to carry it on, and we'll find out how they do.
Couple quick hitters before wrapping up here. I have to ask about Olivier Roux. I assume it's just not going to happen anytime soon, but is there any world where we see him this year as a wrinkle?
As a wrinkle in, like, when
Just throw him out there for 5 minutes.
When it matters, when
No.
it matters.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No. He has gotten better. He started on his for the Canadian team in the FIBA tournament over the summer. He didn't play a lot, but it's just started, played about 10 minutes a game. And whereas last year, where they didn't put him in live scrimmages during practice, they are putting him in now. And it's a big deal when he makes a play. People get excited for him because it shows what he's doing, especially if he does something with makes a play with Ruben and Condon trying to guard him or something like that. Because the Lord knows those guys have made a bunch of plays against him over the years. But he's a great kid, works hard, but this is another developmental year for him for sure. But unlike last year when there was no chance he would play, he could, the Rowdy Reptiles would be calling his name in 30-point during, the last few minutes of games when the home team is up by 30, and maybe we'll get a chance to see him come in the game.
I love it. Like the idea of just lottery ticket, try to develop this guy. You never know what can happen down the line. I'm just, because he's so unique, I'm just curious about him. And then Aberdeen gets wooed from Kentucky, gets that big payday. It just made sense on a championship team as the one guard returning, like kind of getting the keys, and that's not how it went. Was there a big effort to kind of try to counter that offer from Kentucky? Was it too outlandish, or was there a part of him that just was ready for something new? Do you have any thoughts on the Aberdeen situation?
I have thoughts. I mean, they weren't going to match that. What Kentucky was able to roll out, and that's not necessarily a dismissal of him. I mean, I give Denzel Aberdeen all the credit in the world. The guy was a tremendous teammate and a tremendous developmental player in this program. Did everything he was asked. Would he have liked to play more? Of course. Man, he was on the court in the last minute of the game in the national championship game. He scored the last point last season for that national championship team. Yes, he went to Kentucky. He's got 1 year left. He's got a chance to make a difference for himself and his family, and I'm not going to begrudge him that. I don't. He's not. Denzel Aberdeen's probably not going to play in the NBA. He's probably going to be an overseas person. Probably do very well for himself internationally. But he had a chance to make difference, making money, funny money, as you would say in the transfer portal world, and good for him. It's funny. He when the team went to the White House in May. Um, he wasn't gonna go. Walter Clayton called him up and goes, "No, you're coming. Everyone here loves you, and you need to do it." And he came, and that's the last time I saw him. He had a great time. I took a picture of him at the Resolute desk, in fact. Um, and it's a pretty good picture, actually. But February 14th, Kentucky comes here. And I've said this, I hope to God the fans do not boo him, because I don't think Denzel Aberdeen deserves that. He's as much of a champion for that team as anything. And yeah, he made a decision that was the right decision for him.
Well said, Chris. Fantastic having you on. So cool to hear your insight as someone so close to the team compared to all my other guests. I don't have anyone, who's in the meetings and everything like that. But really appreciate your insight. It's awesome to hear, and I just have so much respect for Todd Golden in this program because of the Moneyball-esque just kind of commitment to analytics and just the way that they develop guys, and just the way they play basketball. I just enjoy watching Florida. I loved watching them play, his whole tenure. So thanks again for joining, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.